that people can use to build themselves or to build their businesses. And so 4 years ago, I wrote this book, Ready, Set, Grow. And I wrote it partly out of frustration so that when people would ask me the same questions, how did you grow your business, Roy? How did you manage to scale it? I'd say, here's an idea. Get the book. Because for £12, it's all in there. I've not held any.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Nguyen, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Career Coaching Secrets podcast. I'm your host Rexhen, and today's guest is Roy Newey. He is a business growth expert, author, and trusted coach for 120 growth companies worldwide with a remarkable track record of scaling businesses from 10 million all the way to 180 million and boosting profitability from 1 million to 30 million pounds. Roy brings decades of experience helping leaders break through growth plateaus and achieve bold, sustainable success. Roy is the founder of Roy Newey Limited and the author of Ready, Set, Grow, where he distills 40 years of business wisdom into a proven system packed with practical strategies, 120 golden tips, and 12 action plans. Whether working with boards, coaching leadership teams, or advising on AI's impact on business, Roy's mission is clear: to equip business owners with the tools, mindset, and confidence to accelerate growth and defend their core. And it's a pleasure for me to have him on the podcast today. Welcome to the show, Roy.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It's a pleasure for us, Roy. So I wanted to ask you, how does this business started, your coaching business? What inspired you to become a coach yourself?
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and I'm glad to share these thoughts. So I left school at 16, and I managed to fail every exam the school put me in for, which is quite an achievement, because with some exams you only have to write your name on it and you get a pass, but I stood in the hallway of my parents' house with my mother, and she opened the letter with my results on it. And next to the 11 subjects I'd taken, it had U/C against all of them. And so my mum said, that's a bit strange, because I would have expected to see an A or a B or a C or a D. And she said, I'll ring the school and ask them, what does that mean? She went into the house and she rang the school, and I watched her on the phone, and she said, oh, right. Oh, that's okay. No problem. Well, thank you for explaining it. Very good. And she turned round to me and she went, and she came up to me and she gave me a hug and she said, apparently it means upper class, darling. Whereas actually, as you know, it means unclassified. My results were so grisly, I didn't even register an E or an F. And so as a result of that, I was unemployed when I left school. And I was lucky enough that the government placed me on a youth training scheme for unemployed youths. And I was placed into the National Health Service, where I worked in the finance and admin department. And they were very kind to me. They taught me how to work in a team, how to deal with filing, how to work in an office environment, the introduction of computers. And this was very good. But when I was 18, a very trendy restaurant opened at the end of the road where I lived. And every day I would walk past this restaurant and I would see this exciting atmosphere that was in there. And so I started working there in the evenings. And then much to my parents' utter dismay, I left the civil service when I was 20 and I went to work in the restaurant full time. And I was made the manager. And then by the time I was 23, I was able to open up my own restaurant, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. And the restaurant was massively successful. We do 300 people a night, and we'd have people queuing for 2 hours, and we were very lucky. And then I opened up a coffee shop and a bakery and a wholesale fruit and veg and a wholesale butcher's and a florist. The thing I didn't have was a candlestick maker. But I really enjoyed the opportunity of working with people, helping them do things that they hadn't previously thought they were capable of doing, and delivering great service or food or flowers to my customers. And so I did that for 8 or 9 years, and then I got an offer to buy the business, and so I decided to take that opportunity to sell the business at that point. And I had been on television in a Dragon's Den type or a Shark Tank type environment, and won this particular program and won the prize money. And so the government had asked me to start doing speeches to help them promote enterprise and self-employment, which I was happy to do. And then the government rang me up and said, we want you to do this big speech for us. And I said, well, I can't do it. He said, why not? And I said, well, I've actually sold my business, so I don't think I've got any authenticity if I stand up and say, you should be in business and be entrepreneurial, and then somebody's going to ask me what I do, and I say, well, I'm just sitting at. And so they said, well, what are you actually doing? And I said, I'm sitting at home thinking about what I'm going to do next. And they went, come on, Roy, what are you really doing? And I said, no, I'm really not got a clue. So they said, well, we think we've got an idea for you. We've got a business we'd like you to lead. And 3 weeks later, they convinced me to take the job of leading the economic regeneration of Liverpool, Knowsley and Sefton. That's the Merseyside region. And it's about 3 million people, 22,000 businesses. And I was given 550 civil servants and £100 million per year to turn a city that unfortunately had fallen into disrepair. The docks were staffed by 40,000 dockers, and then somebody had come along and invented the container on ships. So all of a sudden, you didn't need 40,000 dockers to unload ships and load ships. So almost overnight, there were 40,000 men who were made unemployed in Liverpool, and there was no jobs. So unemployment was 40% if you were male. And so my job was to get those people back to work, get them retrained, reskilled, re-energized, and encourage businesses to come into Liverpool to provide the jobs that they could take up. And I had 7 years doing that. We also secured £1.7 billion of European Objective 1 funding. So over the 7 years, I was responsible for investing somewhere in the region of 2.9 billion. And during that time, I made a lot of mistakes. I got a lot of things wrong. I found myself in some difficult circumstances, but I got enough right that I got away with it for 7 years. And if you were to visit Liverpool today, compared to Liverpool in 1980, you would say it's come on quite a bit. There's work to be done, but I had the great opportunity of working with the people from Liverpool, the Scousers, as they're known as, and they're hardy people and they're tough people, and they rose to the challenge. So I did that, and then the government changed, and the new government said, we don't want a particular organisation, we'd like this particular organisation. And I was happy at that point to say, I've done 7 years, I've really enjoyed myself, I've learned an awful lot, but I'm happy to move on. And again, I was sat at home and I saw a business that was for sale, or had an investment opportunity that was turning over 3-5 million. And so I decided to make an investment, and they were involved in delivering economic regeneration in the UK. They had 65 staff, and I came on board as a director and investor. And the next 16 years, we grew that business to 180 million and 5,000 staff. And I opened that business in 15 countries around the world. So France, Germany, Israel, Poland, Spain, South Africa, Pakistan, India, Australia, etc. And we were delivering solutions for people who were living in poverty to help them move on and take responsibility and have new skills and provide for themselves and their families. And I did that for 16 years. And and that was a fantastic opportunity. I spent 12 years living outside the UK, helping the businesses in each area. And then we got an offer to buy the business in 2014-15. We sold the business. And since then, I've been invited to become the chairman or advisor to about 120, 150 companies in the UK and in America and Australia, in India, where they were looking for somebody to help them achieve a level of growth. Thank you for listening. That's me.
Amazing. That is such a in-depth story. I really like that. And it's like an amazing amount of impact that you have been able to make throughout the years, especially working on these big projects. Now, how did this when it comes to coaching, what was what was the segue into it? We talked about you getting involved into this business, but also I can looking from your LinkedIn account, you also have your own coaching business, your AI coaching business. So I wanted to see how that fits into this one.
Great. So I'm not a great one for planning, career or, and so what happened was you get when your business gets more than 2, 3, 15, 20 people, you realize that you can't actually achieve anything yourself, and that the way you can achieve things is through other people. And the only way you can achieve things through other people is by inspiring them and lifting their souls and helping them believe that the challenge that you're setting them is within their grasp and that they're able to do it. And then when they have achieved that challenge, being there to applaud and celebrate that achievement, and then to lift them on to the next challenge and the next task. So I ended up building my business from 65 people to 5,000 people. And the main challenges I faced were, how do I inspire and coach and this amazing group of people so that they really wanted to achieve the objectives that we've been given by government, by charities, by communities, to lift them out of poverty. And so from that, it's a natural cascade then to when I didn't have the businesses anymore, the skill set that I've got is amateur. So I spend my life, meeting people and say, what do you do, Roy? And I start to them, and because I'm dyslexic, I don't read and write very well. I listen intently and I watch people, and by watching people, I then start to say, come on. What is it you really want to do? What's important? What's stopping you? What are the constraints you're facing? And before I know it, I find myself in a coaching conversation, which is brilliant in a sense, but frustrating if you're my family, because Dad goes to the shops and ends up trying to coach, the lady at the till, the man in the warehouse. When we go out socially, I'm sat and well, come on, what might you do next? And sometimes it gets me into trouble with the family because it's like, come on, Dad, we just need to get on. So that's how I ended up in coaching. And then I've never really advertised myself as a coach. In fact, sometimes when people call me a coach, I feel a little bit of a fraud because I've never studied anything. I don't have any. I don't I'm just me. But when people have and said, well, are you a real coach? I said, well, look, I'm a bit of a fraud. I don't think I'm really a coach, but I know that what I've achieved in my life is something you would love to achieve. So I can help guide you through that. I can steer you through the maze of opportunities. I can be there to lift you and to drive you and to challenge you when I think you need that. And I'm very lucky that I've got a whole group of people that I've worked with who've gone on to do amazing things, really amazing things. If I may just take a moment, in the restaurant, I had a young lady who turned up and when she was 16, and she wasn't in a great place, And she said, you have a job, and we tried her out, and we found her somewhere to live, and we then allowed her to work a little bit behind the bar. And then after 6 months, she went into the kitchens and she learned how to chef. And then after about 2 years, she started doing a manager on shifts. And she was still only 18 or 19. And she worked with me for about 3-4 years. And then she came to me one day with a letter and she said, I hope you don't mind, but I'm resigning. I said, oh, it's no problem, Emily. You know, that's okay. Where are you going? She said, I have always wanted to be a policewoman, and I've got accepted as a police trainee. And I said, that's brilliant. You know, keep in touch. And she spent 2, 3, 4 years with the police. And then she was headhunted and she went down to work with Scotland Yard. And she spent 2, 3, 4 years there. Then she was headhunted and she went to America. And she worked with the police there in America. And most recently, she's been the vice president of American Airlines and the vice president of DocuSign in the States. And Emily is fantastic. Now, I believe that everyone I've come across has that within them. They have that opportunity to go and do something way beyond their expectations. And when I see Emily interviewed on TV, and when we keep in touch, she's very kind to me. And she says, do you know what, Roy? You were the first person who I knew believed in me. And because you believed in me, I thought I had to take responsibility and believe in myself. So that for me that's what it's all about. That answers the question.
Absolutely. It is such a, like, hearing these stories and the amount of impact you were able to make is just like it's what it's for, right? That is why coaching is, for the amount of impact they can make in someone's life and someone's career. And not just that person, but like when we think of Emily and everyone who's closest to Emily, you also been able to impact them through the change that you made in her. So I wanted to ask you,
may I just interrupt you? So may I just a second? So you've just made a very, very good point. I was in India delivering a program to help unemployed people get skills and get secure jobs. And at the end of 16 weeks, we had a passing out parade. And so I was at the front and I was handing out certificates and shaking people's hands and saying congratulations. And this gentleman came up and he took his certificate and he said, thank you very much. I said, absolutely, well done you. Look what you've achieved. He went, no, thank you so much. He said, I want to come to dinner with me and my family tonight. And I said, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm not sure that will be possible. I've got a couple of things on. But he was persistent and holding on to my hand. So I thought the easiest way to deal with this is to accept and go for dinner with his family. So my car took me to the middle of the city in Bihar. And they stopped at the side of the road and this guy was waiting for me. And then he took me across the dual carriageway. And in the central reservation, he had a house that they'd built out of corrugated iron. And I said, you live here? He said, safest place. He says, you don't get attacked because of all the cars on the road. So we live here as a family. And I said, wow, okay. And I went in and they had children beautifully in their school uniforms and his wife was beautifully dressed and clean and they cooked a meal and we sat and we ate it. He said, you will never know what you've done for me. And I said, oh, it was you. You did it. You did the course. You got the job. You know, what an amazing. He said, no. He said, thanks to you, in 200, I will be remembered. And I said, oh. He said, yeah. He said, there will be a painting of me on the family wall. And that family will be sat down and they'll say, great-great-granddad was the first person in our family to gain a qualification and a paid job with taxes. And because of that, his children went to school. And because they went to school, their children to university. And because of that, we're sat here today because great-great-grandfather, he said, so what you've done for me is you've given me the opportunity to be remembered for 200 years. I just wept. It's like, wow. And it's very easy, I think, in life when we're comfortable, when you've got chandeliers in the room, or when you house like I live in, to forget just how vulnerable some people are and how grateful they are for the smallest of bits of help and advice. And so that what a joy. It's like, do we really need for doing this? Like, that's a joy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an absolute joy. And I wanted to like dig deeper and kind of like understand when it comes to the people that you work with, the people that you coach, is there a specific industry? Now, I do see AI coaching, but is there a specific industry or a specific type of demographic that you typically find yourself coaching at, or is it mostly broad?
So I have ended up with a focus being on family businesses. I'm not going to delve or ask penetrating questions about yourself, but most families are wonderful, and most wonderful families have some oddities about them. And from time to time, there are stresses and strains. And all of that is amplified when they're sat around a board table and money's involved and positions and status and generations. So I find that the most enjoyable place to work. So I go and sit in boardrooms of family businesses and help them navigate the complexities of the intergenerational, the champions, the hypes, the lesser performers, the shareholders, non-family members who are on the board. I try and my coaching skills are brought to the fore by helping those families find a greater level of harmony and aligning themselves behind a goal, and then driving really hard for growth. That's my sweet spot.
That's great. Awesome. So generally, and these are local businesses, right? All
UK, America, Australia, France, India, but mostly the UK, but those other areas as well.
And in terms of like the future, do you have any goals with your own coaching business? How do you see your coaching business evolving in the future? Is there some goals you're working for, like 1 to 3 years, let's say?
So my goals are constantly evolving, and at the moment that I don't have enough hours in the day, that I get asked lots and lots of questions, for lots of advice, and I find myself repeating the same, let's call them golden nuggets, the same simple basic ideas that people can use to build themselves or to build their businesses. And so 4 years ago, I wrote this book, Ready, Set, Grow. And I wrote it partly out of frustration, so that when people would ask me the same questions, how did you grow your business, Roy? How did you manage to scale it? I'd say, here's an idea, get the book. Because for £12, it's all in there. I've not held any punches. When people read it, they go, but what's the magic bit? There isn't a magic bit. It's in there. And so I wrote that, created a lot of value, and people bought that and struck up relationships with me and said, I've read the book. Can we work together? Would you coach me? And I was like, happy to do that. And then this year, I've published a second book, which is this one, which is The Curse of the Undead. And I had a different title for it, but my 24-year-old son said it was boring. So he said, do you want something really that's going to catch people's attention, Dad? So my future, I think, is about putting the experiences that I've had, the notions in my mind, and putting them down in books so that people can, for a very small cost, can take advantage of them and can invest in themselves. And then I always put my email address in, and my phone number in it. So if people want to reach out to me, I'm always happy to talk. But at least for a small token, they can start on that journey of self-development.
And as you were explaining this, I think because my next question is mostly focused on challenges, and it seems like one of the challenges you mentioned is like capacity and not having enough hours within the day, would that, how are you thinking of like solving that? Or like, if that is not the main challenge, what is the challenge you're trying to solve for next within the coaching business in the short term?
So one of the ways of dealing with the challenge of having so many people is you keep putting your prices up, and then it gets to the point where some people unfortunately can't access you for the price that you're asking. And I say, well, look, don't worry about it. Grab a copy of the book. Grab a copy of the book, and then let's have a phone call, and I'll fill in the gaps. I'll read the book, and then I'll field your questions, and that's all for free. So, but what it means is I use price as a lid on the demand that I get, and I want to put time aside to write this stuff so that it's there for it's more. It democratizes the knowledge that I've got. More people can access it.
And are you thinking like writing a new book besides these two?
Oh, yes. Yes. Do you want to know the next one? The next one is that I'm doing now, was just doing for this call, is called Who Killed the Sale? And I have reinvented myself as Detective Chief Inspector Roy Newey. And I go and I analyze sales crimes. So people who are up, people that don't identify pain points, people that don't, whatever. And I've listed 33 of the most heinous crimes that salespeople can commit. And then I've assembled a group of experts who say, you're guilty because you didn't prepare for that call. You didn't do such. And I'm having a ball, seeing that. And then I know when that goes off into the ether, some people will use it as a doorstop. Some people will use it as a gift for a wicked uncle that they don't like. But some people will buy it and read it, and it'll start solving problems for them. And that gives me great joy. Because I can only talk to one person at a time. But the book can be listened to or read simultaneously by 100 people. So I get more out there through the books. I'm lucky that I'm not in that situation where I need to generate significant fees. I'm very lucky in that respect, but the book cascades.
I really like how you thought about this. So you still are able, even though some people might not be able to access you directly, given the like you are limited by capacity, so you have to raise your prices, but you've written these books and you're also offering availability to fill in the gaps with these questions. I really love that. That is not something that anyone would just do. So thank you for like offering that help. I wanted to like get your pick your brain also on the last question I have for you today, which is, what advice would you give to other coaches who are looking to scale their impact?
So I think it starts with the advice it starts with really, really good listening skills and watching people. Before you told me something about yourself, and I said, well done, that's great. And you said, oh, well, actually, I can't take the credit for that. It was such. But people have that default where they struggle to accept compliments. Now, it may have been that you didn't put a lot into it and you did, scrape it off the whatever. That's fine. But simple things like learning to accept compliments is actually so tough. And when I talk to people, I notice this about them, and I notice this and I say, I'm going to pass you a compliment in a minute, and I want you to say, thank you, that's very good of you. And so I say, are we ready? They say, yeah, I'm ready. And I give them this compliment, and they really struggle to accept the compliment. And that's about our upbringing and about our feeling of self-worth. And I do, I catch myself doing it myself. Somebody says, Roy, that was amazing. I go, oh, it was nothing. And my wife is really good. She, and one day I was somewhere and somebody came up to me and said, can I just say, I thought your speech was really good. It's really me. And I said, oh, thank you. It's nothing. I've done it 1,000 times before, honestly. And I walked away, and on the way home in the car, my wife really told me off. And she said, that person, when they approached you afterwards, they were 6 inches taller because they listened to you. And I went, yeah. And she said, they were feeling confident. They were feeling that they could step up and achieve something. And I said, yeah. She said, and you turned around and you said, oh, it's nothing. I've done it 1,000 times before. She said, I watched them shrink, Roy. So what sort of a coach are you? You know, you grew them and then you shrunk them back down. And so I hear that. So if somebody comes up to me and says, you know, hey, Roy, I read your book. I really liked it. I'm saying, thank you so much. You've got to be gracious and accept the compliment. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And now I can see.
Shall we try it?
Why?
Shall we try it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's do it.
That introduction you gave before was a really good description of my life. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you so much, Roy. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us your knowledge.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been great to meet you, and I hope it helps anybody that listens to it. And I'm always happy to be contacted or be in touch or email or whatever. Be delighted.
And for who wants to do that, who wants to reach out to you, they can go into your LinkedIn, Roy Newey. They'll be able to find you there. And they can also find your email there, or they can go into your website.
Yes, I find Yeah, absolutely.
Is there any other way they could reach out to you?
I think that LinkedIn and my website and the email address, I to bed each night unless I've had every email. So, yeah, that's the best way to get hold of me. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me on.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.